looks like we're good. All right. Been a long time since my last stream, but finally, things started to settle down. Anywho, let's jump right in. So, as detailed in this thumbnail and my Instagram post from earlier today, we'll be looking at the skill menu. Basically, you can see here we have a pretty nifty skill tree here working. Right now, only these skills are actually populated. There's going to be a part 2 where we actually set up the locks and switches for the skill gates. But right now, we're going to basically take this setup we have here and make it work for Maya, right? Like her skill tree is actually just essentially just inactive. It's static, I guess you could say. Right? So between the two of them, I figured out a pretty good system, some improvements and upgrades from the previous, and I'm going to implement those with less of the R&D, more of just the straight development. It should be more tutorial-esque, but I still am not comfortable with calling this a tutorial. But in any case, this is what is basically driving Vance's skill tree. I mean, well, the full breakdown is we have a skill menu that contains the widget for the skill trees, and then we have a parent skill tree, and then we have the classes, or the child classes for each character, right? So you can see the parent here, and this is what's driving Vance's. So we're going to basically set up a similar setup for Maya on her skill tree over here, which currently is just an empty child class. I mean, it's got variables in the sense that, these embedded widgets are here too, but it doesn't have any of the main logic that Vance's does. Okay, I'm going to drag this off to my other monitor and hopefully not totally obscure my chat in case anyone has questions. Alright, so looks like the first function we need to override is the one for initial selection, because if we pop in here, we can see right now, you can see there is an initial selection for Vance's skill tree. On Maya's, there's nothing. And if we, toggle between both, it works there too. So I believe, if I've done my work properly, we should have, it should be functional as soon as we set up the override. So here we have function, initial selection. I'm just going to grab a comment box from here and begin populating this over. Maybe we'll use like a bright blue for Maya. Something in and around this ballpark. And the first thing we do is we grab our skill node index, and from here we find. So this node index here is basically a map type variable of all of these nodes for these different skills. All right. So what we're going to do is set these up inside the index. But the initial selection is going to find the previous node. It's just sort of for housekeeping. There shouldn't be anything selected previously, but just as a failsafe, this is here. It helps keep things safer for future proofing as well. And then we can grab. Okay, so let's set skill name focused. And what we're going to do here is have volley be the first skill, or the initial skill, I should say. Yeah, I switched things to a name-based system just because it was a lot cleaner than the previous name. Or sorry, not the previous name system, the previous system, which is basically integer-based. It was very messy and convoluted. It's just easier to keep track of everything this way. Right, so then we set volley to we set a name, we set the variable for the name we want to select. It's a target of our initial selection, and basically we find it inside of that array. And then from here we're going to state cycle this to hovered. We're going to plug this in here. And then lastly we have another function override, which will be not the navigates, send data to skill menu. Oh shoot, we don't want to get it, we want to override it. Oh no, sorry, we don't want to override it. Excuse me, we actually want to just use the parents function, because the parent has everything set up for us. Okay, here we go. Perfect. And again, I'm going to just grab a comment box, keep things nice and organized and clear. And this should do it. The only issue is we don't have anything populated in our index. So that is what we will do now. What we're going to do is another function override. These are all set up in our parent class. Let's see here. Parent class is, or sorry, the function we're looking for is node index array construct. Very cool. So we're gonna function override this. Whoa. Whoops, didn't wanna. Yeah, well, basically it's made to be overridden, and I have a print string in case as a debug tool. Right, so we can begin with probably a tier 0 skills. It's basically this is tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So which nodes are we looking for here? We're looking for not the bridge, excuse me. We're actually looking for BD. Oh, that's all set. Cool, just making sure all my naming conventions are consistent. We are looking for volley, siphon, shroud, and wave. Whoops. Looks like I overwrote my shroud skill. Cool. Sort of like this, and basically from here we're going to, I'll probably duplicate it because it's going to get pretty intense, but you know, we're basically adding all of these to our map. And then our map will have it now. Sorry, this function here, all these find functions, we'll be able to find these terms like volley because we're going to set them up here in the construct. Let's call this node array construct. And we'll set the name here. Try to make things somewhat neat and legible. Okay, and we have wave. Whoops. Alright, so now we should get an initial selection. Fingers crossed. The groundwork has already been laid. I hope it is fine. Let's click on her. And we got our initial selection. And we got our default values populated for our skill details being displayed, which is really cool. None of our inputs work, but I'm happy to see that turn out the way it did. No issues. Everything's going according to plan so far. Okay, so what is next? Right, so I guess I should explain the reason why we changed things to a parent-child system and this kind of navigation is because, well, the skill tree menu itself uses these. Currently, it calls functions on the skill tree itself to navigate up, down, left, and right. And this is better because the old system was kind of messy. We were using integers and we didn't, like, every node had a number in an array, and it wasn't very clear and easy to work with or manipulate. And then, you know, you're controlling multiple characters on the same widget, and it was just turning into a mess. And this is only with 2 party members, and once I began the process of designing a few more party members into the battle system, it was like, this is going to get really messy and really bogged down real fast. So we have now as a better solution, and this is just sort of junk reference in case I need anything. I don't want to delete it just yet, but that should probably provide some context. Anyhow, we need to add additional functions just to colorize our work properly. So we'll duplicate this over because we're going to move this around. We're going to grab the values from here, and that gives us an array of everything in our map, which is super convenient. And we'll do a for each loop on these. And basically for each node in our map, we set this focused party member variable, and we set it to Maya. Basically, there's color profiles inside of these nodes, and it'll basically keep everything matched. It uses Vance's ID by default, so now that if we compile and go back in, we should now. Whoops, wrong one. Oh, that's not working. Interesting. Yep, definitely setting it to her. I'm going to continue on with the function override map setup, and then we'll come back to populating the data afterwards. But for now, let's override function down and override up, left, and right. And the cool thing is these inputs are already being set up and managed, and this event only gets called on a do once. That is being reset by the tick of the menu controller, so it's actually, well, I think fairly efficient. Left and or right and then left. Okay, so let's rename this. Keep everything nice and neat. Navigate down, and basically the flow for this is similar to what's going on up here. Set skill name previous with our current skill name focused. So based on our initial selection override here, volley will always be what's called here first. And then as we move around from node to node, it'll automatically update our previous node. And then we will grab a switch on name. And we need a very important print string. I'm just going to copy and paste it from Vance's one I have open on my other monitor. Basically, if there are any errors, we'll get a print string to notify us. It's always handy to have those on switch on names. It's a good tip I picked up a while ago. Now, what do we got next? Always keep the default pin, of course, and basically we know the first one is going to be volley, then shroud, and siphon. We don't need one for wave because we're not going to be able to go, you know, there's no valid down node from this position, so just the first three. So you can come back to here, open these three up, and call this volley. Shroud, I believe, is next, and then is siphon. And we can sort of. Whoops. Sorry, we don't want the node itself, or we don't want the function itself. We just want this, and we want to put the up navigate in here too. Those will be our initial two directions. The left and right get a little bit more complex because we have some skill gating going on depending on player progression. Now, this is the opposite. Instead of volley, we have this at the bottom here, and it should be wave. I need a bit more space. So next, what I'll do is I'll grab our map, use a find, grab our previous. So like before, similar to, we find our previous, and then we cycle our states to neutral, basically indicating that this is no longer being focused. And because this gets used everywhere, we're going to collapse this to a macro. I call this a deselect node. Shouldn't need a description. Should be. I want to have faith that it's fairly self-explanatory. And we just type this in here. So basically all of these have the same function, and then they root back into the same end, which is updating the actual skill menu widget itself. So go to siphon here. Now this may seem like a terrible arduous task, but it's definitely worth it because we have several skills, and this list is going to get really long, and it'll be handy for future work. Forgot the most important part. We want an output for that node, so we can hop back here, and now we have our output. Perfect. And then from here, let's grab our skill node index, Control W, copy that over, and then we're going to set focused. And we can essentially just focus our desired skills. So from volley, well, we have the order here as a reference. We know shroud, and we know shroud is going to, the downward direction is to go to siphon. And from here, if you guessed wave, you would be correct. Now, each of these use a find function. I wish they could all route into the same, but they can't. Maybe we can keep things a bit neater like this. So we find this, and then we basically state cycle these two hovered. Alrighty. Yeah, that should do it, I think. I forgot one last detail of this function. We need to focus sound effects. We need to call that just so we get some auditory feedback. And then we're going to basically use this function again here. And like that, everything gets updated. So now I'll have a downward direction for the most part. We can actually copy wholesale here. So we know this is shroud. Siphon and wave. And these transition to, so the upward direction is actually siphon, shroud, and this should be volley. And these are basically, you know, tier 0 skills. Navigating downwards. It's a bit long, but it will suffice. Cool. So let's compile, save, and let's test this out. Well, it's definitely an error somewhere because we lost our on the upwards up on siphon, but it's definitely working. It's just a name error. So up siphon goes to shored. Oh yeah, it's not. That's not a valid name. This should work much better. Hooray. Okay. I suppose the next thing we can do is set up the initial skill data setup, but I want to double check why this color setting isn't working here. So what we're going to do is actually jump over to the skill node widget, which is here. There it is. There's some alerts here. It doesn't look like anything major. And we're looking for the focused party member variable. Let's hop over to the graph. Focused party member variable. It is fairly new. Pre-construct. We'll have to wait to test those, since we'll start getting skill percentage and for the progress bar over there. Skill tint, branch, skill icon, set skill locked. What I would like to know is the highlight. Where are you being set? Twice. On the state cycle. And here. And that's why, because we're using active character and not... I see. I need to think. Okay, this will be fine. We can use focused party member here instead, I believe. We're not going to outright delete this, but we are going to create a switch here. So I test if the logic is already in place for this to just plug in and replace. Compile that. Let me get out of here. Okay. Whoops. Beautiful. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. Wonderful. Okay, good. Beautiful. That's fantastic, actually. Thank you, past self. Okay, let's just do a save all, maybe. That was way quicker than I thought it would be. Okay, let's close skill node. I don't think we'll need to go back in there. And we get brought to this data table. Basically, these data tables are based on a struct that I use for pulling data for the skills, right? So the data table has the descriptions, names for English right now, but we can add in more languages later, which is cool. That's why I like a data table. And then we have some gameplay mechanical data, and then we have some statistical data. So this is for percentage work, and then this is for, like, cost 50 TP, for example, to use this spell or skill. So if we hop back into the skill tree, we can begin to make something happen here. We do need these to work. And I don't think we need a tick here. So I guess the first step would be to get our game instance, which holds a bunch of critical data. And this reference is already set up on the parent, so we know that it is valid and pointing to something legitimate. And we're going to call a function called getSkillData. And basically, as you can see, gives us a whole bunch of information. Oh, not really. But it will. We just got to give it a data table first. Basically, where's that little ellipses? Come on, there you go. This is for volley. And we can go to our data tables, grab our volley data sheet, and set it as such. Looking good. Okay. Oops, okay. So the next element we need to grab from here is something called a skill tracker. Oh, I haven't made it for Maya yet. Okay. That shouldn't be too hard. We'll just compile and save. And we'll jump to the game instance. And basically under character data, we have this new variable called skill tracker, or advanced skill tracker. We're going to duplicate this and essentially just call it Maya skill tracker, because that is as appropriate as a name as we can get. It looks like this goes right to the bottom here. These are no longer going to be used because this is a far more efficient setup. It tracks the level of advances. Not quite, not anymore. Tracks the level of Maya's skills and grabs data. There we go. Wish you could make that larger. It's kind of annoying to work inside that little space, but whatever. Small criticism. Yeah, so for her skills, we have another set of names and a map, but this time it's using a struct. And basically, if we pop this open here, you can see the names of skills, so in this case, the volley, and I'll have level and, you know, a growth counter that determines the number of uses. So we have volley, shroud, siphon, and wave for tier 1. Yeah, so 5 at 81 uses. I don't know if this is actually correct numbers, because those are pulled from Vance's variable when we duplicated it. But we can quickly verify this. Siphon will be at level 5. We can just put 600. That's fine. Those are kind of temporary numbers. They'll get adjusted when it comes time for mechanic debugs. So let's just do level 5. And let's put it at like 600. And that should allow us to preview the percentages and how they look. Oh, whoops. All skills are level 1. You can't have level 0. It's 1 to 10. Oh, hey, Rusty Pickle. Just saw your message. Thanks for stopping by. So, where was I? We hop back over to here, and in our game instance, we can grab our newly created variable called Maya skill tracker. And now we can find, based on that name, the skill we're looking for, which is volley in this case. And then we can break this struct because it's a custom struct, and then we can pass through these 2 important levels of our pieces of information. Excuse me. Words are hard, or maybe it's getting late. Hard to say. With my apologies for my verbal foibles. And now we should be able to get all of this data out. And basically, we dump it. We dump all this data into the actual skill node, which is going to hold it. Skill data in. Hop on through here, and we're going to do a bunch of connecting the dots here. Is it unlocked? Like, yes, obviously. We want this skill to be unlocked because it is tier 0. It starts unlocked. Oh my gosh. Butterfingers over here. Okay, so text for next level is actually here, and description goes here. Execution is kind of it's a bit more dynamic. We can't pull it directly from a data sheet, but I mean the solution isn't overly complex. I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious to anyone following. Skill growth counter, uses for next, previous for calculation. Basically, for volley, it's we basically go integer to string. And then we append this here. Basically, you know, type in our language here to per volley. Period. And the reason why it's not a text coming out of here is because this same datasheet is used by our battle mode characters, and they are going to pull just the data, just the cost, so they can do the equations. But for the skill menu, we're just displaying it in a nice way. So these get applied with none. I'm just going to copy paste that. Power value can get passed through nice and easily. And skill execution, nothing crazy. You just make use of an append here, and you know, you have TP per volley. Basically this will be when prompted. Then we grab a select. We hook that up here, and we're getting another game instance reference. And we want a specific enumerator to drive our selection options, because this is a bit dynamic, right? And it's actually twofold, but it's only onefold right now. We're just going to grab our input methods. Right, so you can see basically depending on the control setup, right? So this would be L1 or R1. Key here, it would be left mouse button, left mouse button, or right mouse button. And the space is set there. For Xbox, it's a bit TBD. I can't remember what it's called, right bumper maybe? Is that RB, left B? I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's a quick fill in later. The two pronged sort of difference in what's going to happen is we're going to have languages populate options here as well, which should also, like, it's not an ideal solution, but again, the data sheet can only split on 2 axes, so it'd be cool if we could have some sort of XYZ data sheet, if you can imagine. I don't even know what that would look like, but for now, this is the solution I've come up with. And basically, you know, I just compile, or collapse rather, these together, and you know, I just type, give it a cool name like skill exe underscore volley, you know, and then that information gets passed in through here. And then I think we're missing one last function override, and that is the send data to skill menu. Because we don't want to actually call the parent function, because the parent function is actually, well, it's just this, and it gives out our default values that you saw earlier. And now that we have actual values to pull from, we can make use of that to actually get our accurate data. So here we'll go to skill node index, and then we'll find from here, and we'll finally find the skill named focused. Oh, we should probably grab this, give it a nice function override box. Send data to skill menu. Oh, it's a bit ugly, whatever. And from that focus node, we grab skill data out. And then we grab our widget underscore skill menu reference, and that is not what it is called. There it is. And then we call our function operate skill menu. And finally, we hook these up, and now everything should be perfect. Even our percentages should be correctly displayed, because all that groundwork should be done on the parent functions, which, as you can see, will make setting up future characters a breeze. I mean, relatively. I mean, a little bit of labor here, but compared to the old setup, I think this is far more efficient. But let's test that out. So, jump into here. Cool, look at that. We got our data, 5 TP per volley. How cool. We got execution. We got the description, all being pulled from the data sheet based on English language selections, which is super neat. And we have like a next upgrade text. Can fire an additional volley. How cool. Strangely, this one here has 0% as well. In any case, let's hook up those other skills. I need more space. Always need more space. It's almost as if you can never get enough. So, real simple, we hook this back up here. Well, actually, hold up. You can save a lot of effort doing this. Hook this through. Just have to make sure to replace this. So we'll grab our shroud, dump that in here, hook that up, delete that, make it nice and pretty. I'll probably duplicate this. Oh, done. Yeah, something weird. It doesn't show the readout, so you have to kind of duplicate it again. I don't know why. It's just seems to be that way. But it's not the biggest problem. So we set up our skill counters, and next we change our data table to draw the right one. So hook that up here, make sure it's right, looks good. TP cost for volley. Whoops, just gonna look at my data sheets here. For the time being, I'm actually just going to leave execution as none as well. And this isn't TP per volley. It's just that much TP. Also, I don't think there should be a period here. Let's keep it consistent with Vance's skill tree. Oh wait, these do have costs actually. Unlike Vance, Maya does have a variable resource. And it's water points per volley. So I'll get that right up there, and same goes for, well, most of her abilities really. If I call this shroud. Just copy and paste this around. Go to the content browser, grab the right data sheet, hook that up here, grab that. I'm going to leave this as none for now as well. Oh, I guess we could do this. That's always a neat trick. Okay. Let's call this wave and wave. And I guess we can just hook that up this way instead. Okay. Now, the last thing we have to do, I believe, is just plug these in. Let's double check this. L1, R1, that actually will probably be the same input method, so we can get away with copying this. I think it is. Oops. Oh, right. Yeah, it's a little important to reference what we're trying to call. It's only a little bit necessary. And this is siphon, so we should grab waves. Hop back in here, hook that up, nice. Okay, we'll save, compile, try that again. Get back over to our development room. Cool. And we have our skill upgrading too. So you can see how that is working and the colors are correct, which is sweet. Power value, non-offensive, or yeah, abilities that don't have an offensive function hide the power value, which is good. 50 TP. Oh, yeah, that's correct. Just try to have a space between the 1 and the water points up there. Max comb length. Ugh, some typos here, but you can see how it's functioning. One thing I do have to check is if we, for instance, if we take, let's just say this is level 10. Whoops. If it's max, so I want to make sure that those functions are working as well. Kind of. We got the yellow text. We have the progress bar that is maxed. However, we do not have the progress bar being full on the node, which is interesting. I wonder why that is. Oh, that's funny. If we go over to Vance's skill tracker and we, do the same to guard, force that up to 10. Is it functionally the same? Nope, it is consistent. Which is odd. A little bit of an inconsistency there that we need to fix. Not the biggest problem, but still an issue. So, how do we fix that? Well, it happens here. Let's go check out skill data in, and we have our percentage calculation, progress bar percentage, text, check if skill is maxed, skill level equals to 10. Oh. Okay, let's find where this is being set. Nope, that's correct. Skill data in. Yep, definitely odd. So we're just checking for that value, and we do pass it through. Another area that could yield that problem is here. Skill level is being set correctly every time. Right. Okay, so it works there, just not here. For a bizarro reason. Shroud. It is being set. Well, it's good to know that my consistencies work between characters, which is cool. So there's just some small error somewhere on this. So we jump back to here in the setup. Shroud is shroud. Well, maybe we only have one troubleshooting solution to try. There's a problem here. And its name is Shroud. Oh yeah, it requires 10 uses, so we can just grab this and bump it to 5, which would be 50%. Yep, there is an issue with the node itself. And why is that? Wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? And there it is. Problem solved. Cool. And well, that's the basic setup. I mean, this has to get like fleshed out fully, and then we have a fully navigatable and fully populated skill tree. Functionality wise, that's all that's keeping this one from behaving the same as Vance's. Right. Jumping over here. Sorry, jumping over to Vance. There is another mechanic that does come into play, and it is basically having these skills and pathways not be flowing or open. Like, they start locked, right? And then they they open themselves up as you level up your skills or the preceding skills. So I guess that's some logic for that. That's basically the part 2 to this stream. But you know, I hope you guys found it interesting. But you know, seeing as it's about midnight here, I guess it's time to, you know, probably get some sleep, and I'll get back to more game dev stuff next time. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all the support, likes and subs, etc. Catch you next time.